Hello, I'm Langston, and I'm back on my channel, Military Election Forecasting. And today I'm going to be talking about the Democratic Electoral Firewall. It's obvious that the Electoral College has always been something that's benefited Republicans usually, but as of currently, many people see it as the opposite. And today I'm going to be talking as to why that is. In 2000, George W. Bush was able to win the Electoral College despite losing a popular vote. And just 16 years later, Donald Trump was able to win the presidency despite losing the popular vote by winning the Electoral College. And with the change of modern American politics, many people see the Democrats as having an advantage in Electoral College. And we're going to be talking about why that is. So for Democrats, they automatically start out with safe states, the West Coast states, obviously, as well as Illinois because of the city of Chicago, New York because of it being dominated by New York City, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and District of Columbia, as well as Maine's 1st Congressional District. But they do have a lot of states that Republicans have firm in their column. Those states are Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska's 3rd District, as well as 1st District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana, as well as Alaska. And for Democrats, they have a lot of states that realistically they don't have a realistic chance of losing, even though they won't be winning those states by more than 15 points. And those states are Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia, Maine, New Hampshire, and Minnesota, as well as Nebraska's 2nd District. And I also like to add Nevada. Basically, all of the Hillary Clinton states from 2016. I'm going to get into that. And for Republicans, they have Iowa, Ohio, Florida, and Maine 2nd District. And for recently, I'll throw in Texas, even though many people could debate that Texas is still Texas isn't that lopsided of a Republican victory, but in terms of chances of Democrats actually winning it, I would throw it in there. So Hillary Clinton's bottom margin of 232 electoral votes is realistically the lowest Democrats will go. And if you go back to 2016, you'll see that. Hillary Clinton won all of these places except for Nebraska's 2nd District, which Joe Biden won by a pretty sizable margin. And it's a left-trending suburban district. And we know with college-educated voters, they're trending Democratic, especially with the Dobbs decision and with Republicans' recent policies. So with that, we can add Nebraska's 2nd District to that. Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia aren't really debatable. And New Hampshire and Nevada are states that I believe Republicans do have small chances of winning, especially in a very unfavorable environment to Democrats. But realistically, as long as Democrats can get out their base in Las Vegas, continue making ground in Reno, Republicans are not going to make up these margins in the rural areas. And in New Hampshire, as long as, you see very unpopular policies like being anti-abortion and mainstream anti-abortion from a Republican's perspective, as well as being anti-LGBT rights, these college-educated voters in New Hampshire are not going to be in favor of that. So Democrats have basically a 232 vote baseline in terms of how low they can do. And the good thing for them is they only need like a couple states to get to 270. And they can do that by holding on in the Rust Belt, which they've been doing for a while, and holding on to their blue wall. They can do that without the Rust Belt. The Republicans can win all 3 of the Rust Belt states. But if they can't win North Carolina, and they just win all 3 of the Rust Belt states, if Democrats can win Georgia and win Arizona, states they've been making some pretty sizable gains, obviously, for the last decade, where they have both Democratic senators, and Joe Biden won both of those states back in 2020. If they can just continue making gains in North Carolina and flip North Carolina, they can win without the Rust Belt. So for Republicans, they're automatically at electoral disadvantage because Democrats have so many pathways they can take. And one of the most likely pathways is, we know that Michigan is the bluest of the Rust Belt states. So even if Republicans are able to win Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, if Democrats can win Arizona and Georgia and just hold on in Michigan, they'll still win the presidency. So for Democrats, looking forward, they have a pretty sizable advantage, at least for an electoral firewall in the future. We know that states like Texas are becoming a lot more democratic because of the growth amongst voters, in particular Hispanic and Latino voters, in places like Dallas, in places like Houston and San Antonio, as well as El Paso, as well as some of these educated suburban voters in places like Fort Worth and Hayes and Williamson County, as well as these northern Dallas suburban counties. And with just an increase in minority voters in general, rather that's Black or Asian American voters in Texas, and continued gains amongst college educated voters in Texas, Democrats are gaining here. And we've been seeing this for the past decade in Texas. That's another state that in the future Democrats have a somewhat bright future at. In North Carolina, one of the states with the fastest growing Black population in the country, we know that the more Black voters there are, the more Democratic voters there are. And the problem for Democrats in North Carolina is they struggle to get out that demographic. But with more of those voters to offer, they're obviously going to not need as many of them to show up just to have the electoral advantage, as we've seen with Democrats in Texas with Hispanic Latino voters. And with that, Democrats automatically start up with a pretty sizable advantage in the future, because we know the places in North Carolina that are growing are Charlotte and Raleigh. And you see 393,000 votes for Democrats in Raleigh, as well as 278,000 in Mecklenburg County. Look at these rural counties. It's 27,000, 64,000, 16,000, 15,000, 35,000, 41,000. Like, look at these rural counties. There are not as many votes in these rural counties as there are in these big cities in North Carolina. And where the demographic changes are happening in North Carolina, they're happening in places that benefit Democrats. And with that, that's pretty bright for Democrats in North Carolina. We know that Georgia and Arizona are already looking bright for Democrats in the future, with Arizona's growing Hispanic and Latino population, as well as the shift amongst independent and former Republican suburbanites in the Maricopa County area in Arizona. We know that that's going to help Democrats in the future, as well as the dramatic rise in the Black population in the Atlanta suburbs, and the educational rise in the state of Georgia. We know that Democrats are improving in Georgia in the future. And it's more than likely the Democrats will end up losing ground pretty substantially, and probably losing their Rust Belt in the future. That can easily be counteracted by just these three states. And let alone with Texas, which would be able to make up for an even larger electoral victory than Joe Biden was able to achieve in 2020. So the point of this video is to talk about the fact that, looking at an electoral perspective and just looking at how electoral politics have been happening for the past couple of decades, Hillary Clinton built a pretty sizable floor. In 2016 proved that Democrats have a floor in terms of what they can do. And without Donald Trump, it's been proven the Republican floor is much lower than that. Republicans can perform a lot worse on an electoral map than Democrats can. There's only so bad a Democrat can do nationwide, and that's something that we've seen. And with that, the path to 270 only takes a couple of states, multiple of which Democrats are already making gains of. And for Republicans, they have to negate a lot of unfavorable trends and hope for certain demographic groups not to come out in large numbers to realistically be able to count on having narrow electoral victories in the state. And it's something that you saw. Democrats can afford to lose a lot of these states where Republicans have to sweep the board. So with that, that's all I have to talk about for this electoral firewall for Democrats. My next video is going to be about the demise of Democrats in the Rust Belt. It's a very common topic for people to talk about how the Rust Belt is shifting right, but I'm going to be going into why that's going to be a major problem for Democrats in the future. So make sure to tune into that. Thank you guys for tuning into my video, and make sure to have a nice day, you guys.